and we are live once again with Frontera Radio, the first show of 2023, and a very special guest to kick things off, a stranger to absolutely nobody in this fair town, Mr. George Altgelt.
It's an honor. Glad to be here. Love your new studio. Love the new
Thank you,
digs.
man.
It looks state of the art.
Thank you, brother. I can't believe you had not been in here yet.
No me has invitado.
I have, man, but you're always very busy mounting revolutions and stuff.
Yeah,
man,
yeah, coups and all sorts of other. It's good freedom, for it to ring.
Yeah.
We've got to get moving.
Not good, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I tell folks, democracy exists in very few places left on the earth, and we're a democratic republic. We're not a true democracy in the United States, and so is the state of Texas. But at the local level, democracy still exists, or at least the hope of it, right? Because you can pick up your cell phone and you can call a council member, or you can walk to City Hall, or you can go to make a public comment.
Yeah.
And so local politics is really where it's at, and so it's up to guys like you and guys and gals at home to do your part and make sure democracy, that hope doesn't fade, and that it still is shows bright.
Well, man, I mean, everything after the election, just great election cycle, just great candidates, and I mean, I know that you and I and a lot of people were in the thick of it, here commenting and just also supporting a lot of these new candidates that came up, and I mean, it was. I'm very happy with most of the results.
Yeah.
In this election cycle.
Yeah,
Just
me too.
Gave me a glimmer of hope in terms of we're finally going to have a majority of people that are interested in just doing the right thing. And I mean, I tell people, what do you look for in a political candidate in Laredo? It's the bar isn't too high. Just people that know what the difference between right and wrong is. And I think that we although that we do have those kind of quality people, we have very bright, progressive, forward-thinking people. But I mean, the problem that we've had in that a majority of the city council, for example, just kept on the same practices, kept on doing the same thing over and over.
Because this new city council is quite different. And I got to tell you, I went to that first council meeting where all the new city council members were seated, and it was surreal. I was sitting in the back row, and I was looking where I had once sat, and looking where many another fool had sat before. And there aren't as many fools as there once were. There's like smart, educated, caring, regular human beings now who didn't think that by virtue of being elected they just won the lottery. These are people that are looking at water. They're looking at a government that works for its people. It was very refreshing. I kind of had to I remember just watching them, the deliberations, in this case the vote, and thinking how the patron system got just a hard right punch and a left hook and a kick to the groin, and we're not out of the woods yet, but
I mean that meeting, the purpose of that meeting showed us that they ain't going down without a fight.
But what was interesting is how the new mayor, Dr. Trevino, and his group, most of them were seated there, right? You had Tony Gutierrez, who used to work for LISD. He was the superintendent of finance. This is the guy that was buying oak trees from his wife's florist company. Just Mr. Double Dealing himself. You had Eduardo Garza, el licenciado, the guy that's got the monopoly on the cold and storage inspection, cold trade inspection facility. The guy, is a trophy hunter of souls. This, super politico. You had Dr. Trevino's son, who was there, and you had all the Tecos people there, and then you had all these paid, political lackeys. You had
Cañoneros.
Luxandra Guerra from the former deputy constable for Constable Rudy Rodriguez, who's been ousted and convicted, and so like the cast of support for him, dime con quien te juntas y te digo quién eres, was extremely telling. And then, but here's what I still can't figure out. Maybe you can figure this out, but like, we've all heard the expression like, well, no, it's because you just can't read the room, right?
Yeah.
And they couldn't read the room. They couldn't see that their move to reopen the deadline and repeat the whole Robert Eads fiasco of getting somebody, handpicked and chosen.
Yeah.
They didn't read the room on how bad that was just going to come across. And I don't, is that hubris? Is that lack of political savvy? What is that?
I think that they wouldn't have called that special meeting if they did not think that they had the votes in the bag. Because, I mean, for this to be the first move by the mayor and for him to fail so spectacularly at it, it ended up being 8-0. I think it was just a very big stumble out of the gate. It obviously didn't help him. It really, really was very disillusioning for a lot of people who thought of this man as our hero during the pandemic, who stood up to the very same system that wanted to just pervert the whole process for personal and political gain. And Dr. Trevino was very emphatic, like, no, we're going to do this the right way. This is a health crisis.
Transparency.
This is a health crisis emergency, and please don't interfere. That's who people voted for. That and that's who people supported. And for this to be the first move. Now the other thing, man, is that if you just wanted, if the reality was, I want to reopen the process because it's not transparent, then why do you have all these people there?
Right.
Like to show support for just wanting to redo this. This was obviously, they were there in support of the candidate that they wanted to have appointed as the next city manager. And I think that used to work back in the day, but.
And it was very clear from just my intelligence gathering that, Dr. Trevino definitely wanted to have Cynthia Mares be the next city manager.
Yeah.
There was, a political debt that needed to be paid. She obviously openly supported him in the runoff. And from what I was able to gather, he went on record saying that, there aren't enough local females. There should be more females applying for the job.
So let's trash the process.
And then, el licenciado Eduardo Garza has a conversation with a member of council where he's saying, hey, please consider Cynthia Mares. And she's her application isn't in, but it'll be in soon enough. And then, like California wildfire, that ripped through City Hall as, wait a minute, I thought Dr. Trevino was an outsider coming to right the wrongs of a patron system.
Right.
Do you mean to tell me that it's deja vu all over again?
Exactly.
And then, to his and his son's credit, I mean, they went onto the airwaves, they got the bully pulpit, and they pushed this transparency Trojan horse, and people were buying into it. I mean, even like Our Laredo. I mean,
it was gaslighting.
Totally gaslighting.
Yeah.
And even Our Laredo, which is supposed to be a watchdog, I mean, they're still on the gaslighting trip, talking about how, hey, he's, we got to support him. He's, it's transparency. He's the reform candidate. And what we see now is that, his house of cards is just that, and it's been blown over hopefully he now realizes that the dynamic is, it's 6-2, and he's the ninth vote, right?
Yeah.
If he even gets to vote, so it's a different council.
It is, and I mean that was the hope all along. I know that there are at least half of the council of people that I believe, and through personal history, knowing these people and how they think, just wanting to do the right thing for the city, ran to get in there and use their expertise to help make this place a better place to live, to regain some of that mojo that we've been losing after decades of the Patron system, where the Monterrey shoppers just abandoned us,
right?
Where this town has just stagnated. So let's go back a bit, man. I mean, the city manager position, and the thing is, and members of the media as well, what's wrong with restarting the process to make it more transparent, man? Like, this isn't the first time that this
and I was a little disappointed in a lot of the news coverage. It seems like the interviewers were very much giving Dr. Trevino a pass and the benefit of the doubt, and they were like, to Mindy Caso's credit, she asked a couple of questions like, like questioning, like, well, what do you mean transparency? It's been posted for all this time. How does this make it more transparent? And the doctor had this bogus argument. Well, the deadline was set before all of council was seated. And that argument doesn't meet logic, doesn't pass a smell test, because the previous council, to their credit, as dysfunctional as they were, they said, we're not going to pick the next city manager. We'll let the next council pick it.
Let's just start the process.
But let's set them up so they can hit the ground running, not hit the ground stumbling, which is unfortunately what Dr. Trevino and his advisors set him up to do. But there was some resistance, obviously, from the usual suspects, right? Daisy Rodriguez, was very, well, who's the leak? And, Alyssa just, nailed her tacones to the floor. Like, well, the leak is all the locals that are, courting and lobbying. There's your leak. Hello. That's why we need to respect the process. And I think that ultimately, Albert Torres read the room and was like, yeah, the votes aren't there like you promised they were.
We're just going to let the mayor take the hit.
So 8-0, we'll join the winning side. That was classic,
man. Bye, mayor.
Yeah, adios. But, Ruben Gutierrez, he nailed it. He was like, no, man, like, I was part of the previous council. We said we were going to set us up for success.
Yeah.
Gilbert Gonzalez in the South.
That's right.
He was like, come on, man.
That's good for him.
It was so it was very, I'm telling you, it was surreal to watch this, the group of six just not put up with any of it.
That was wonderful, man. When I heard about the meeting, and I was just keeping up. Gordiloca was posting a play-by-play of the
check this out
happenings.
Though. It's like we're like an opposite world, like we're in the upside down universe. At what point did our Laredo become the mouthpiece for the patron, and is Gordiloca now the voice of the people?
Who knows, man? Welcome to Laredo.
So anyway, it's strange. I don't want to. I'm exaggerating for effect, but you see what I'm. It's like she was on top of this. Mayor Trevino nonsense.
She knew right away what the game was. Just like you, just like me, we knew like, oh, here we go.
Here we go.
We can't.
Here we go.
I can't believe we're in this situation again. But the outcome was different.
It was different,
and that was just a ray of just glorious sunshine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But okay, look, a lot of people don't who are just paying attention to the moment don't sort of understand exactly why this is so crucial. Why what the mayor tried to do was just bogus and disappointing. The city manager position, for the longest time, the city manager, other functional cities, they hire people who have managed cities before, who have the certifications.
Right.
It's a science. I mean, it's
Right.
running
Right.
a $1 billion budget. It's a medium-sized city, 500,000 people, thousands of employees. A person who doesn't have the training or the experience to do this is not the right person to do this. So what we have in our city, what has happened for a long time in our city, is that the city council, who approves the appointment of the city manager, instead of hiring the best, most qualified, most competent, hires because of loyalty. Hires someone that says, okay, I'm going to give you the job, local political person.
Right.
We're going to exclude all these professionals from across the country who are extremely more qualified than you, Mr. Eads, Mr. Olivares, etc. And we're going to choose you because if we hire one of these big shot executives who knows what they're doing and they come sit down, they're going to want to run the city. They're not going to listen to us when we ask them, hey, please appoint my primo to head parks.
Buy a billboard with my face on it because I'm up for re-election.
Exactly. Please give my contract to this guy because he gave me a political contribution.
Or I get to stay in his condo.
Or worse. Or I flew with him in his private jet to the Dallas Cowboys suite.
Or to Guadalajara.
Or Las Vegas. Or, I got to make my payment on my F-250, you know. So please give him this appointment. A professional, competent man is going to be like, hey, man, I want to manage another city after this one. I'm not going to do shady, sketchy crap, man, for you. And these council members whose political career is all about greasing wheels and cutting deals and amassing political power and putting my people in all these different positions, those people don't want a good city manager that is going to tell them, I'm not going to do that, man. And the thing is, our city is falling behind because we have these people who are controlled by city council members that don't have the education or the experience to be giving orders to run a city. These people are not qualified or trained to run a city. These people are in it for their own interests. And the actions that they order the city manager to do are to further their interests.
But that's that. Previous councils, right?
Previous councils.
This council, I mean, we're not going to give them a report card just yet, but this council seems to be different. But
it is different.
To your point, so everybody remembers Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers Jackie Gleason played Buford T. Justice, and he very famously said, godless communism, right? And so if you study history, being serious, if you study history, they were kind of contemplating like why did Stalin make so many mistakes during World War II? And one of the biggest mistakes is that he surrounded himself with people that were loyal.
Yeah.
Because people that were competent made him look bad, right? Because he was just kind of a provincial putz. But people that were loyal, that's the ones we want, right? And so when you surround yourself with just loyalty and not competent people, you get what we have right here in Laredo. You have this godless communist model that has failed. And so if we trust the experts, this fella Ron Hollifield from Strategic Government Resources, he spent almost 2 decades in city management himself. He was an assistant city manager in Plano, as well as Garland, DeSoto, Farmersville, Sundown, and was on the city manager staff in Lubbock. Like this guy, he created a company that originally was just designed to find. He was a headhunter for Fortune 500 companies, right? But he headhunted for NASA, Xerox, IBM, American Express. I mean, so that's what this guy did. And then he shifted gears and said, you know what? He sold that company. I'm going to create a company designed just to help cities find city managers and assistant city managers. That's like a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
And so he and his colleagues in coordination with other cities devised processes in which city managers could be selected in a way that One, you know, there was going to be some integrity in the process. Two, there was going to be some security. Like, if I'm going to apply to go work in your city, and I'm going to roll the dice to relocate to Laredo, Texas, my family, stake my career in the hands of 9 strangers. Let me go with a trusted expert who's not only vetting me as a candidate, but it's also vetting the city as a potential employer. And so we spent at Keith Selman's direction, someone whom I trust and who's served the city faithfully.
Yeah.
Keith Selman went and hired this company and gave the city a model to follow so that we can get the best of the best, so that we can turn the page from the Eadeses and the Olivareses and the Carlos Villarreales, you know. Yeah. And so we're on the edge of success. Yeah. Right now, there's a big vote right around the corner. And so for those at home, you need to be calling your council members. You need to be showing up at public comment. Like, they need to feel the pressure of what is best for the city. They need to hear from you. As confident as I am in the 6 solid votes for a new day in Laredo, because of my PTSD of being on city council, I'm like, democracy will not happen by inertia. It happens because we make it happen. So let's make it happen.
The only reason that a lot of this stuff has gone on is that they count on nobody paying attention.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case this time. And I think that they were shocked by the amount of civic mobilization that occurred when people like Alisa, like Tyler, put out a call to the community. Hey, 5 alarm, like this is serious. Everybody who can get down here, make a show of force. And I mean, that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
There was a great show of force from the public, not the paid cañonero lackeys that showed up, but you know, all the other people that just showed up on their own to say, hey, this transparency thing, we don't buy it, and here's why, and give us the city we deserve. Give us the type of city that our kids will come home to, instead of this, you know, continued exodus that we suffer as a result of, you know, many factors, least of not which is being this, you know, fractured government we got.
That's exactly right, man. And I mean, also one of these things, and I mean, even if you were to give the benefit of the doubt to this excuse that they came out with, saying transparency, women's rights, and all that, which is noble causes, obviously.
But you got to do the right thing the right way.
But the thing is this, man. I mean, this process has been debated for a long time, extremely publicly, saying we have to remove political influence from the position of city manager. City council members shouldn't be telling city managers what to do. They should get the hell out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Their role is more of a legislative policy. Yeah. And the city manager is the chief executive. He should be able to hire and fire department heads, give raises, give contracts based on the best value for the citizens as a whole. Not for Councilman X's political donors.
Right.
You know, for the citizens as a whole. And so for this process to be so carefully laid out, in that we are going to hire an outside firm that specializes in this, that has no links to the politicos in Laredo, specifically to avoid that conflict. And for this firm and for the people who said, okay, I'm going to participate in this process. I'm going to write my resume, get letters of recommendation, man, go to the interviews, get my hopes up. You know, like people all over the country saying, okay, maybe I have a shot here. And for them to say, hey, you know what, that process is all bogus.
Right.
It's all bogus.
And what do you tell the applicants, right?
What do you tell the applicants?
Because the big fear, in Vanessa, to her credit, I mean, she nailed it. She said in that meeting, hey, potential applicants, we know you're watching. We know you're paying attention. Please bear in mind that, you know, 6 of us, we're not behaving like the other 3. 6 of us, we want the process to go through. Please don't be discouraged. Please don't withdraw your applications.
Because that happened last time.
Because that's what happened last time. All the good ones bailed. And I remember I spoke to one specifically, and he's like, "Hey, man, if the fix is in, like I currently have a job. I don't want I don't necessarily want my employer to know that, I'm applying. And so, I mean, they're going to find out anyway, but I would rather, it not be under these circumstances. And if the fix is in, well, then I want out. Yeah. And frankly, I don't want to work for a employer where I'm having to deal with this politically charged, very unstable environment where in a year or less, I could be shown the door and I have to relocate my family all over again." Yeah, according to some of the older political operatives here in Laredo, there was a point in time in the charter where the charter was written that a local could not be hired as a city manager.
Interesting.
Because they did not want someone showing up with a bunch of political baggage, and they didn't want to have things turned back to the Mayor Martin days, right? So post Tatangelo, revolution, there was this big move to have the outside city managers so that they could be able to call balls and strikes without worrying about somebody's compadre or somebody getting somebody's friend getting a contract or not. They just wanted to run the city, and it ran well for a while. Mm-hmm. I think Saul Ramirez kind of was the we saw kind of maybe perhaps our zenith, and then we began this steady decline, which is symmetrical or parallel, if you will, with the hiring of Carlos Villarreal. We went local, and it cost us a lot of time and money.
Well, yeah, we're still seeing the effects of that culture that was established at that point, where it just became a cesspool of what can I say, man?
Yeah, Dannenbaums.
Yeah, Dannenbaum stadiums that are falling apart, man. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on.
Things white elephants left and right,
The hires and this questionable hires. And a lot of these people, man, from that era are still looking to wedge themselves into these positions, including the city manager position. Yeah. A couple ran for LISD board, for school boards. One guy was involved with a cleaning contract at UISD. Yeah, where a board member walked away with $500,000.
As of 3 months ago, it's probably gone up. He's still getting paid to sanitize schools.
Yeah. And so you have.
We're talking about Rick Rodriguez, by the way, UISD school board trustee. His wife ran for election in South Laredo and did not get elected.
So there are upstanding members of the community that are lobbying for these characters to get the top job, job, instead of supporting the clean, transparent process, which I think is just sad, because a lot of these people contribute a lot of money to a lot of these city council members, and they're exerting their leverage and their influence to try to get them to vote for a person that has shown that they have no business in public service.
And that was the point I made, and I used myself as an example, right? You don't need a politician, you need a technician. And because we know, Cynthia Mares used to work at the county, and she's a trustee at Laredo College. Yeah. That doesn't make you a good candidate for being a city manager. That's a very niche, it's like a flight surgeon. It's like a space aeronautical engineer. I mean, we're not looking for a handyman. I'm looking for a technician, right? And the same argument holds true with some of the other applicants that have been allegedly lobbying council that. Like Mike Garza apparently is lobbying council to be selected, right? Mm-hmm. Former city council member, now the number 2 guy at UISD, political operative in South Laredo, and very much part of the Patron system, right? And he's lobbying to be your next city manager. the rumor is that I wanted to be the next city manager. And although I'm plenty crazy, I'm not crazy enough to do that job. And although I'm plenty qualified to do that job, I know there's somebody way more qualified than myself that this city deserves. You don't deserve a generalist. You need a specialist. And the same holds true with the other individual who's also local, also former county commissioner, who's also applying. With all respect to him, great guy, Jerry Garza, whom I like. But, as I told Jerry, ni tú ni yo estamos calificados para esa posición. Like we need someone who's already reinvented a downtown, who's already reinvented the inner city, who's already diversified an economy, who's familiar with all the acronyms and all the parts of the government code, Chapter 380 and tax increment reinvestment zone, and all the mechanisms that cities use to harness tax bases in order to have meaningful economic development and job growth, right? Like the city of Laredo does not deserve to have someone learning on the job. We deserve to have someone who already has notches in their belts, pedigrees, experience, and education in the very specialized field of city management. And that's what's at stake in this next in this next big vote, not Monday's council meeting, but the one where they're going to publicly interview and then make a determination.
Well, I mean, it's like if you need brain surgery, man, you're going to go to a guy that went 10 years to school for that, to the university and PhDs, and has worked 20 years at a hospital, and that's why they get
hasn't been sued for screwing something up.
Yeah, and that's why they get paid the money they do, and that's why Laredo sets aside $300,000 plus for this position, because this position requires a person that deserves $300,000 plus, because their credentials and experience merit it. We have been giving that salary
to flunkies.
To flunkies, man. To flunkies, I mean, that don't have this experience or qualifications, and the results are evident. And we keep doing the same thing over and over,
expecting a different result. And what these people are doing is selecting someone that's going to be their puppet, malleable, that's going to do whatever they say, and we can't afford that anymore. And to the $275,000 or $300,000, which is kind of the going rate for a city our size. And the golden parachute, as we like to call it, it's called a severance package. It's not whether we can afford to pay it. It's whether we can afford not to, right? Because if hiring Robert Eads at $275,000, we're clearly getting the short end of that stick, right? But hiring a assistant city manager from Lubbock, who's got the notches in his belt, who's worth his weight in gold because he knows how to organize a management team and department heads and instill a culture of integrity. Let's pay $300,000 for that. And you know what? Just in case it all goes south, here's another $300,000 for you to relocate your family and still be marketable, because you, like the rest of us, your only fault is you were a hopeless romantic and you thought you could change the city of Laredo like the rest of us, right?
That's exactly right.
And so here's some severance pay so you can put your life back together. Yeah, of course. And so people love to have that populist argument about, the golden parachute. It's a waste of money if you hire some local flunky, but if you hire some top tier grade A, board certified, ass kicking son of a gun, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly right. So let's wait and see how this plays out. I mean, that was a really, really good sign. The vote 8-0. That was just real. sigh
right.
of relief that that a page has been turned.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the mayor falling into that was just, I was crushed, man. It was such a big disillusionment in terms of I saw this guy that during the pandemic acted in such a way.
He and I had a great rapport over the pandemic, and frankly, a mutual respect. I saw him firsthand be a doctor and not a politician, and make some really good decisions that made me proud that we had selected him to be our public health authority.
That's exactly right.
And so we roll around into this vote, and I tried to reason. I could never get him on the phone. I could only talk to his son. Apparently, his son does all the talking for him. And trying to reason with his son about what a bad move this was. And his son, one of the things that was really disappointing is the mayor just tried to get it done without even going to council, right? And then he was told, no, this is council action to have it be done this way. To undo that, you need council action to undo it. And so the mayor or the mayor's son, Mayor Jr., just set an arbitrary January the 5th date. Didn't bother to poll the council members if they were even available for that date. And so when I asked Mayor Jr., like, hey, I mean, protocol and decorum, like at a minimum, I mean, just to build respect and to build unity with the people you're going to be working for and with for the next 4 years, common courtesy says, well, let's just see if you're available, right? And Mayor Jr. tells me, well, if they can make it, that's great. If they can't make it, that's fine, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking what you said, which is they must have thought they already had the votes.
Yeah.
But very clearly, they did not read the room, and they did not have the votes. They had the false narrative of transparency, and they thought that they could just kind of Orwellian doublespeak their way into it. Like if I tell you there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq enough times, you're going to be like, yeah, let's send our kids to Iraq, right? Yeah. And I think they thought if you say a lie enough times, people will believe that it's true. But what they didn't count on is how much people are paying attention and how this council is savvy enough to not, be spoon-fed a lie.
Well, and you have also the dynamic where the people trusted the mayor. This guy didn't lie to us during the 2 years of the pandemic.
Right.
He told us the straight up, good and bad. He stood up to the politicians who wanted to take advantage of the crisis for their own gains. He's obviously not lying to us now.
Right.
And that was just one of the most horrifying things of the whole thing.
I think he's being very ill-advised.
Yeah, there's no doubt in that.
And when I look in the the other thing that was, you have this surreal moment. We have these great people on council, sticking to their guns, making the right decision for the city of Laredo. And then in the audience, you had basically his kitchen cabinet, right?
Yeah.
And looking at his kitchen cabinet, it's funny how many people had their men, had their hair colored. Anyway, just an interesting observation. It's kind of fake. You know what I mean? Like all these fake people coloring their hair. Nomás faltaban los pupilentes de Tony Gutierrez. Pero bueno, so I think I think there's a lot of good in him. I know there's good in him. I just think that he's being very ill-advised. And so, and I mentioned that, like, hey, man, like, he's this outsider guy. He's a populist. And the person I was speaking to was like, hey, man, don't fool yourself. His dad was the housing authority director under Mayor Martin.
Okay. And
he's been the health authority for the last 20 plus years. Like, he's very much a political insider. And And whether he decides to shake loose from Mayor Jr. and Eduardo Garza and all the other people that have surrounded him and decides to be his own man or not, only time will tell.
That's true. Let's talk about District 6, man. District 6, Tyler King, great person, man. I think that the city won in that one. I think the city would have won and with a bunch of those different candidates that ran and got so far in that district. It was heated. It was a heated race.
Yeah.
But I think that the result is good.
It's a great result.
It's a great result, man.
Yeah.
It's a really great result. Give us the rundown on your thoughts on how that race built up and played out and the characters involved.
From the onset, we thought we were dealing with a race against an incumbent, right? And
yeah, that is true.
We thought we were going to go head to toe with Marte. And so our Laredo put a post out, hey, calling all citizens, anybody who thinks they, got what it takes to run against an incumbent, step up. And when we got crickets, except Tyler King ends up messaging Vish and says, hey, in the words of Doc Holliday, I'm your Huckleberry, right?
Yeah.
And he steps up. With time, Marte withdraws. And then, of course, everybody shows up.
The floodgates open.
Yeah, like, oh, me too. You'll see. So,
it became an open seat.
It became an open seat.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is when the going looked tough, there was only one guy that stepped up.
Yeah.
And so, and what was kind of fantastic, because I was told this whenever the first time I ran, your last name, tú no eres de aquí, you'll never be able to do it. Laredo's weird. All the same stuff was told to Tyler, right? And Tyler, to his credit, just refused to take conventional wisdom as an answer. Yeah. And he hit the ground running and went door to door. He raised money. He put a lot of his own money into it, and surrounded himself with some great people, and really was able to deliver a meaningful campaign. Made it into the runoff as the underdog in the runoff.
Yeah.
And just the support that galvanized around him was phenomenal, and he won.
I early on when there were still not a lot of candidates in the race, and I started seeing his materials around town, his signs, and brilliant materials, brilliant colors, pictures, the whole thing. But what struck me most was his slogan on his yard signs, 3 words that just nailed it. We deserve better.
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, in 3 words, he said exactly what the city needs. We don't deserve what we've gotten over the past couple of decades, man.
And his character arc is rather phenomenal. Growing up in Tennessee, ends up working for Teach Across America, which is like it's like the Peace Corps, but domestically for teachers.
Right.
That get deployed to very poor, underserved communities, and so he ends up in the valley, ends up falling in love with a lady from Monterrey, ends up going to medical school, graduating, and decides, okay, well, I need to live on the border because my wife needs to be close to home, and I need to be somewhere where I can practice medicine in the U.S. Yeah. And so he lands in Laredo on purpose. Specifically takes a job at the Gateway Clinic, very South Laredo, super underserved medically, and steps up. And during this time, he says, you know what, that's not enough. I'm gonna join the Army Reserve.
Guard,
I'll sign me up. So he has a lifetime of service.
Yeah, of course.
And then is sitting there watching the city just kind of crumble before his eyes and thinking,
the self-dealing.
Holy moly, I just relocated my wife and my family. and I'm staking my career in this city that is actively working against itself. Yeah. I can't just sit here with my hands in my pockets and go, move to some gated community and pretend like, their poverty isn't my poverty and their bad health isn't my bad health. Like, no, man, we're all connected, right? And so he steps up and recognizes immediately water is the elephant in the room. Besides no good city manager, which is a symptom of a disease, which is a bad city council, water, and we know the Rio Grande, given current population growth models and climate change models, has 13 to 15 years of being a stable source of water. And him, Tyler, looking at that elephant in the room thinking, well, we can do better, right? Like, we deserve better. I mean, certainly. Course, yeah. I mean, you talk to people in your circle, and we talk to people on the street, people outside of our circles. I mean, think about all the beautiful people that live in this city. Yeah. And think about all the beautiful people down the street, that these elderly people that are living in the Hotel Hamilton. I mean, if there's no water, like, they're dead.
Life.
I mean, it's not like they just, oh, well, I'm going to up and move. Like, no, man, like, this is something that is so important that and the can has been kicked down the road for so long that we got to get out in front of it. I was talking to a friend of mine who's been tracking the city's Public Utilities Commission, or whatever they call themselves. And right now, the current best plan, according to this group, it's mostly like engineers and ranchers, is let's pipe in desalinated water from Galveston or Brownsville. And Galveston's a long, far away to run a pipeline. And the project in Brownsville supposedly is, Elon Musk's desalinization project, and putting your water in the hands of a very polarizing, in my opinion, unstable company is not the best move. There is water there's brackish water under our feet that we can desal. The Walkers have been doing that for years on their different ranches. There is once there's sewage effluent that's cleaned and scrubbed and oxygenated and put back into the Rio Grande every day in this town. We can recapture that. There's conservation, xeriscape ordinances. There's a multitude of ways to add resiliency and sustainability to this city's water problem. But that's not going to get done when you're having a city manager who is a former county whatever, city whatever. Like, it's only going to get done if you actually, hire a city manager who's dealt with complex water issues, and who can bring in his, water management team and rebuild the city from the ground up.
George, one of the I think one of the aspects of the previous councils over the last couple of decades.
One of those was ironically a water park. Like, right. So the previous city council wants to build a water park.
Oh yeah.
You don't even have water. Come on. Like, that's let's burn the candle at both ends. I digress. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That has been sort of a mythical solution to the city's woes.
Yeah, we just build a water park.
Yeah.
There'll be tourism all over again, and people are going to show up. It's going to be great. We're going to be splashing in this lagoon. It's like, man, are y'all in the third grade?
River, yeah.
Y'all, I mean, like, seriously? Like, that's your game plan? You that out of touch?
Yeah, it comes up every 2 years, like a semi-serious proposal.
Oh, the water park. That'll save
we're
us.
Gonna build a water park. One of the aspects of these last few years is that these people started just making moves to benefit themselves. City manager raise for $32,000 raise during the Carlos Villarreal years. City council pay got bumped up dramatically. Assistants, cell phones, home offices, like all this thing, like all of a sudden, like, and it culminated in retirement benefits that the council approved. There's moves. This city council has opened up in a big way, and the mayor campaigned on removing these pensions, and apparently he's going through with it. Kudos to him. There's a package of ethics reform that Elisa Cigarroa is proposing. Yep. Sort of an effort to unwind this sort of like era where it became very the city council padded their own nests and their own future. And I mean, right now you're familiar with the firemen union negotiations, police officer negotiations. Those people who are out there every day in the line of fire, running into burning buildings, etc., exposed to the elements, smoke, and everything. Those people want more. They want raises. They want better retirement. Whether they deserve it or not is up for a healthy debate. But for the council to have voted themselves a very generous, hard to find pension, that is sort of like questionable. What do you think of these efforts to just undo a lot of that? Was there a problem, and is the council right now acting in the right direction? Yeah,
I think they're moving in the right direction. I think the mayor needs a win after this previous meeting, and he campaigned on that. It's low-hanging fruit. I know Elisa Cigarroa from day one when she came into office was like, I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't want it. Get rid of it. Management at the time forced her to take it, gave some convoluted, legal explanation that didn't make any sense then. It doesn't make any sense now. It was far-fetched. I can't. It was so mystical and nonsensical. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember thinking, "Well, that sounds like somebody's been drinking on the job." Is what it sounds like.
Which happens in this town
apparently. Allegedly. And so so now and Tyler campaigned on it he as well, and he's bringing is plans on voting it down. And it sounds like there may very well be the support to get rid of it. I mean, just kind of reading the room, it's going to get a little bit complicated because I know Ruben Gutierrez was given that same cockamamie explanation, and he was a police officer already plugged into the retirement system, right? Yeah. And so they were trying to, convert that so that he could, still keep his retirement or still add to it. It's going to be messy. But I think that the political will to undo it is there. And I think that it should be undone. If you're getting elected to office should not be tantamount to winning the lottery or winning a job. Got it. You should be there because you have, the bandwidth, and you should be financially on your own 2 feet sufficient enough that you're not jumping into this for purposes of enriching yourself. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no talk about undoing the salary that they get.
And no, not as of yet. And to be fair, when I was on council, I voted against the pay raise. I also, they said, well, hey, it's been voted. I mean, you can't not get it. You have to get it. Yeah. We have to get it to you somehow. You can do with it whatever you want, but you have to take it. And to be fair, when I was on council, the job was so demanding that my law practice began to suffer, and because I wasn't there as much. And so I had to hire an associate from 60 to 70 grand just to kind of help me keep up with all my responsibilities. Yeah. And so I was being paid 50 grand to take the job of city council So that put me upside down, frankly. I mean, I wasn't, there was no win. It was a net loss. But by the time you take out health insurance and all the other things, you know, you end up really only taking home like about $36,000. And you're going to need every bit of that health insurance. At least you did at the time I was there. You're going to need every bit of that health insurance. You know, I remember I never really understood stress and anxiety until I went to work for the city of Laredo. Yeah. That is a tough nut to crack, but it looks like the political will is there to crack it, and hopefully they'll get that retirement part of the equation done. I was talking to Elisa Cigarroa, and she says when she's been to other conferences with other city council members, like other cities, they all are just blown away at the fact that the city pays its council members and provides health insurance.
And now retirement.
And a car allowance, a phone allowance, and retirement. They're like, oh my God, really?
And there was a move, like I think they share assistants now, like two council members share assistants. Now they wanted to do it, each person getting their own assistant. I don't think that went through, right?
I'm sorry. They are sharing an assistant, and that assistant is so overwhelmed that they're really not able to get a whole bunch done. I mean, they do need support staff.
Yeah.
I mean, the city, it's 300,000 plus people. Things are falling apart at the seams. I mean, council members need all the help they can get. Okay. And support staff would go a long, long way, without a doubt.
You're very familiar with the fire union contract negotiations. I mean, you famously have gotten into it with them in public ways during your tenure as city council. Contract negotiations are underway again, and in the same exact dynamics. The city, I think over 60% of the budget goes to fire.
About 65-ish.
65.
If you add fire and police, yeah.
65% goes to fire and police, and the long-term economic prospects of the city aren't exactly rosy. There's talks about credit downgrades, etc. But these guys are demanding more, and the city management is saying, "Look, man, like work with us. We'll give you a lump sum because if we give in to your demands, it's just gonna place an unbelievable burden on our long-term prospects." What do you how do you think that's gonna play out, especially with the mindset of the current new council?
Yeah, so it's no secret. I mean, the fire pack and police packs play a very big role in elections here in Laredo.
Yeah,
they make the development community, all the big home builders and land developers. I mean, they make them look like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. You know what I mean? And so. They'll send flyers. They go block walking. They do ad buys. The local police union and fire unions' involvement in city politics is substantial.
Yeah,
and
they cut like $10,000 checks, man.
Yeah, and bigger checks in other races, right? I think in Vidal's race when he ran. For re-election, I want to say he got like a $25,000 check to his campaign, and so
Jesus.
The fact that the police and Laredo police and fire departments are some of the best paid, if not the best paid, fire and police departments in the state of Texas, is a reflection of their very direct involvement in the political process. Yeah. You can make that correlation clearly.
Directly. Like you could count the votes and political contributions.
Every time. Yeah. I remember on council having many surreal moments. One of them was when Alex Perez reached into his pocket and unfolded an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and read it verbatim. A lawyer wrote it. on what the motion was to look like in that big increase that they got. It was like a $15 million increase over 3 years. It was a big increase. You know, he read the motion. It was written for him. There was a second, all in favor. Boom, it was done. And what that told me was that the negotiations, they didn't happen between the city management's negotiation team and the fire union. It happened between the fire union and the city council.
Yeah.
And if that process continues, we're gonna face what Detroit faced, which is bankruptcy at the hands of the fire and police unions. By the way, when Detroit went bankrupt, the bankruptcy judge, you know where the first place he went to satisfy those judgments? Their pensions. Oh, really? Yes, I know where there's a bunch of money. Cheryl Scully, former city manager, city of San Antonio, 12-year veteran, just there. She was in Phoenix before. Just a stellar career in city management. Wrote a book called Greedy Bastards.
Yeah.
And in her book, she highlights how the city of San Antonio was able to turn the page and become what it is today, which is this phenomenal economic powerhouse. They get the majority of their revenue is from sales tax, not ad valorem tax. Here, homeowners, business owners, property owners, we pay the majority of the bills along with the bridges. Over there, city of San Antonio sales tax pays it. Anyway, in her book, Greedy Bastards, she talks about city council members who just wanted to get reelected and the political participation of PAC money from unions. And she talks obviously about the greedy fire union and the greedy police union. You could almost just change the names of the city and the people and the name of the unions and overlay it on top of what we have here at home. And there is a blueprint to bankruptcy if we continue on the current trajectory. You know, if I wasn't such a hopeless romantic, and if I was more of a betting man, we'd be relocating our changarro to some other town. But we don't know any better, Sergio. We love this city.
We do, man. And I mean, the way I see it is that you have the interests of the citizens as a whole, the taxpayers who pay councilmen salaries.
Yeah.
And then you have the interests of the fire and police unions whose interests, if the demands that they make will jeopardize the financial fiscal health of the city, then that's the interests of the firefighter and police directly opposed to the interests of the taxpayers as a whole. The taxpayers as a whole pay the salaries of the council members.
Right.
You know, but they don't. But the unions pay the political contributions.
Right.
For the council members to choose the unions over the citizens as a whole is just a violation of the oath that they took to represent the citizens.
Well, I think about it. First responders,
as a whole.
You know, first responders, you know, to protect, to serve, you know, answer the call. And we love our first responders.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
we do.
Let's not, you know, mince any words. When I call 911, I don't want some, you know, BLM person to show up at my front door. I want a trained cop, right? I want a trained EMT.
Yeah.
But if we keep going on the current path, there will be no city to fire or police.
That's exactly right.
You know, if we don't get the water situation figured out, then it's all for naught, right?
Yeah.
And so there's where we need, I think they need to realize, like, hey man, like maybe you don't need that brand new 2023, you know, Chevy Silverado or that super fancy house, you know, in, you know, Del Mar Sea, or where, you know, a lot of first responders live very well, and I realize they sacrifice a lot. Yeah. But so do all the other first responders too.
Yeah.
And, you know, you signed up for the job, just like when you signed up to be a council member. You signed up to serve. You didn't sign up to get a windfall or win the lottery or otherwise bankrupt your own city. Like, come on, like let's look at the long game, right?
Exactly.
And right now it's short game. Let's get this guy elected. Let's get another round of contracts going. Let's get another big chunk of money going. Because I mean, if we can wade off into the weeds, but like with the fire department, they have to have so many new cadets plugged into the pipeline just to be able to sustain the pension funds for all those guys that have retired, right? And so, I mean, we're burning that candle at both ends. We're going to need to really rethink how financially sustainable the current pension plans and model is.
Dude, does the city need that amount of personnel in these departments, like in terms to offer adequate fire and police coverage and EMS coverage?
The FBI publishes a number every year based on crime statistics and population, how many officers are needed to minimally police a community. Yeah. And generally, I think we fall short of that number every year. Okay. But the police department's very top heavy. Hay muchos jefes y pocos indios. Okay. And if you look at the fire department, a similar argument can be made, right? Like, when's the last time? I mean, I know we had that warehouse fire, right? Yeah. Not too long ago. But fires are becoming less and less commonplace because of sprinkler systems and fire alarms and extinguishers and training, etc. Right? But what we do need is EMTs. Right? We know we need ambulances, and we've always been short in ambulances and ambulance crews, because for each ambulance, you got to have 3 crews, and each crew is 3 people. So to run a 24-hour shift, and I'm sorry, they do several days on and several days off, but basically you need 3 shifts per ambulance to be able to cover just that region within the city. And so the need is there, man. Our ambulances are going and coming all the time. Mm-hmm. The question is the model, right? Because right now there's a lot of overtime that gets paid because we're understaffed, but we're overpaid. Okay. And so there's a way to dial that back in and scale it gradually so that maybe not in the next 5 years, but within 10 years, we can have it such that it can be a financially sustainable model. But it gets even trickier when you go into the weeds. For instance, there's all these different promotions you can get along the way. And if you go get your bachelor's degree, if you go become an RN, if you go get your, if you become a physician's assistant, like the more you educate yourself, it's built into the contract, the more they have to pay you. And so what a lot of these guys do is we have a very well-educated staff for the most part at fire, for instance, but the way it's worked in, like you can make 6 figures really quick as a EMT / firefighter, right? Because the opportunities for getting education are there, but the payout is exorbitant. And if you say you bump up to a promotion and you have all that education, I mean, it becomes exponential, the ways in which you get paid. So it's something we need to look at. And I think we can just look to San Antonio. I mean, they dialed it in. They got their unions under control, and they got council members elected who were just above that fray, and who didn't need union money to get reelected. Here in South Laredo, especially, it's very much a part of the program to get elected.
Yeah, George, we're out of time, man. We've been having such a great time.
Yeah.
We need to do this again really soon, especially with all these positive developments that have been occurring on council. Hopefully, we're seeing the dawn of a new day, man. Of a new
6 to 2 or 6 to 3. I mean, the mayor's really not. I think it was one person said, you go back to cutting ribbons. Go back to doing, your vote's there to split the tie. It's a council manager style of government. It's not a strong mayoral government anymore. You may have been elected by everybody in Laredo, but you're not just the voice of the people. So, scale it back. But I'll take a strong city council over a Raulismo or a Porfiriato or some other mayor that's gone astray. We got strong 6. And so that's room for a lot of hope.
Well, hopefully, man. Well, George, thank you so much, man. We'll be in touch often. Thank you for being the first guest.
Thanks for having me, man.
This year.
Thanks for putting this show on. It's important that you keep doing this because,
thank you, man.
And I know you participate beyond the headlines, and there's great colleagues over there at KGNS. But without the media, without Laredos, and I'm a little biased. That's my mom, Meguerra.
Of course, a living legend.
Without, and now Gordiloca is becoming kind of this like people's voice. So thank you to all of you all for doing what you do, and keep it up.
We most definitely will, man. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to collaborating with you and a lot of these great people that have been elected over the last couple of years. We'll be having a lot more of them here, just so people know exactly what really happened was this. Don't fall for it. This is what's going on. I think we did that beautifully today. Hopefully, people will be like, oh, okay, now I see what the game plan was.
Information is powerful because you can really bring out the issues and kind of pull the masks off of folks. And so for those at home, especially those of you at the city, I mean, it's great. Like I've built some great relationships at the city, and I get great information. And so keep it coming. We always keep people's names out of it, and let's triangulate and let's make the city a better place.
Well, perfect way to end the show. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back pretty soon. We want to be having at least 2 shows a week, more if possible, mini shows depending on the developments. We'll just keep at it as we go along. Thank you so much. May God bless you. May you have a good night.
Adios.